Yeah.
Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, the new season is upon us, and of course we're going to start it off at a fan favorite, Oulton Park. Hello everybody, my name is Nick Amon, and I want to welcome you to the very first round of the Simrigs Sprint Series, Season 13. And joining me here in the booth not only is going to be Charles Phillips, a name I'm sure you're all very familiar with, but our Season 12 champion, Simon Bauer. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Hello. We meet again. I'm doing good. It's good to be back. It's good to be out of the car again and, well, sitting on my ass comfortably and just talking.
Oh yeah, can definitely relate to that one, but I am doing very lovely today and, well, looking forward to an exciting race here today at Oulton Park and joined by a very quick driver besides me here in the booth.
Yeah, Simon was a driver we've seen a lot of here in Europe, several seasons, very highly decorated, I would say, and especially looking at your professional sort of stints as well. But, gentlemen, of course, it is a new season, so a lot of returning drivers, a lot of new faces here. Looking up at the pro category, of course, Bauer here in the booth, so he will not be in contention for the championship as far as I'm concerned. However, Rumbouts and Vinogradov are back. Vinogradov just recently joined the server, but Rumbouts running up P2 right now with that 36.42, so very solid time. Daniel Hearn, though, with highest honors here so far in free practice. Looking at the Pro-Am category, Cairns has made a return here. I don't see... Oh, he actually is 20th at the moment, but I'm sure he'll be posting some solid times. And then for the amateurs class, Brioso is registered, but he's not here. So basically the entire amateur category is wide open. Shop, of course, here as well. But yeah, a lot of new drivers, a lot of old drivers. It's always good to see this these guys come back.
Oh yeah, definitely, and well, we have some familiar faces, some new faces here at OOR Season 13, if I'm not mistaken, but so far it looks like we have a very competitive field and on a track that is very hard to master, I would say.
It is a wonderful choice to start off OR's foray into 1.9 with Oulton Park, which is a track that I'm very split on, but it's undeniable that it's a very spectacular track to watch, let's say that. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing all the new faces, always. It's always good to see what they bring to the table. With the old ones, well, I think I've got a little bit more of an insight into them now that I can give you throughout the races. I've seen them up close, sometimes a little too up close. So I'll be happy to watch them from a distance now.
Yeah, could relate to that with myself having raced in Season 11 and then deciding to just go ahead and do this. But anyway, we are about 2 minutes away from being forwarded to the qualifying session, if I'm not mistaken. So it should be 15 minutes and an hour race after that. And should be quite fun, am I right?
Yeah.
And 2 mandatory pit stops with tire change.
That's actually good that you mentioned that, Simon. So there's been a bit of a schedule change. Now, if you remember in seasons past, we had the sprint races, we had the super sprints, and then we had the mini enduros. Those regular sprints were an hour. Those the super sprints were a 20 and then a 40, and then the mini enduro was an hour and a half. We've actually switched it up a little bit. So looking at the schedule, so we're here at Oulton Park, of course. 70 minutes on the clock, 2 mandatory stops. So that's going to mix things up. I did have the pleasure of watching the AP split, and those guys put on one hell of a performance. After this, we'll be at one of my all-time favorite tracks, which is Watkins Glen. 0 stops for an 80-minute race, so it's going to be interesting to see how drivers manage that. Now, that doesn't mean they can't come in for fuel, but it does not mean they have to change tires. After that, we'll be at Suzuka for an hour-long one-stopper, so pretty typical sprint race for them. And then, week 4, we do go to Valencia, the newest circuit here in the game, added in the 1.9 update. That will be a one-stopper 60-minute, and it will also be a spec race of all these drivers hopping into the BMW M2. So we'll be Sort of excited and interesting to see how that goes down. Then we'll be at one of my other all-time favorite circuits, Mount Panorama. That's going to be an 80-minute no-stopper. I don't know about you guys, but trying to do even 60 minutes in worn tires on Mount Panorama is pretty difficult. So it'll be interesting to see how those drivers cope with that. Maybe we will see some tire changes. Maybe we won't, depending on who's feeling brave. After that, it will be Zandvoort, another one-stop, hour-long race. And then the very last race of the season will be at the Nürburgring. I'm sure a track Simon calls home at 2 stops, 70 minutes. So 7 races this season, and it's going to be from today, the 11th, all the way until June 22nd. No bye week, so we are just going 7 straight weeks, and then that's the season. But I'm very, very excited for this new season.
Oh yeah, I definitely I'm excited too because well, 2 of my favorite tracks on the calendar. I will keep you all guessing which ones those are, but looking forward to seeing the M2 spec race, and yeah, I think that's gonna be the most interesting round to see how much BOP affects GT3s and how much these drivers can really push different car to its limits. So, well, yeah, with about 30 minutes left here in qualifying, nobody has set a time yet, so not much to talk about.
Yeah, people are just now on their first flying laps. Let's see who's actually the furthest up the front. I'm thinking Vinogradov is still blue. Rumbaud seems to be the first one on the flying lap. And Vinogradov is doing a little lawnmower in the front of him, but he's getting out of the way nicely.
Yep.
So I think we're going to have to wait about half a lap for Rumbaud to go around and give us a time.
Oh,
but I'll have you know...
Sorry.
A tire?
Just go ahead.
It's a tire.
But yeah, the track choice this season, absolutely wonderful. And I'll have you know, I've never actually been to the Nürburgring, even as a German. I've been to Hockenheim 3 times, never to the Nürburgring. So I actually consider Mount Panorama more or less my home track. And it's probably best for me to go into hiding now, because any German motorsport fan will crucify me once they find me. But there we go. Rumbaud's actually not the first one to go around the track for the first time. 34.5 puts him into P2, when Daniel Hearn, a 33.6, 9/10 faster, was actually the first one to make it across the line and holds provisional pole for now, and is actually a pretty solid time so far.
Well, Simon, I'm sure you are glad you are not the only person in here considering Bathurst their home track. So, well, we are very inclusive here in the OR community. But anyhow, Lingard, an amateur class driver, currently on provisional pole, which I think is pretty impressive.
That is getting off to a wonderful start for Lingard there. Let's see. Santo has now moved himself into P3, Moreno in P4, Michael's P5, Power P6, so Rumbaud's actually falls down to P7. Let's see if he can come back from that. I'm sure there's plenty more in it. He was throwing some good pace in the last season, and obviously before that, having won championships.
And speaking of championships, last season we, had some interviews with the drivers, and of course Simon said he would give us one at the start of the next season. So, Simon, I think it's time we put the microphone in your face again.
Okay,
So,
let's give me the attention while the others are driving.
Looking at the previous season, not season 12, but season 11. Also, I'd like to apologize for everyone, for the fans in the background. It's my PC. She's very angry. I haven't cleaned her out. But last season, you lost the championship from a disconnect. Were you ever afraid that was going to happen again?
I kind of had it in the back of my mind, but I tried not to think about it too much, because usually when you think about it, it just compromises you too much. You really have to go into it with a blank slate. And I mean, I think going into the final round, I was actually pretty secure. I think I could have as long as I finished the race, I was pretty secure in my championship position. But still, never something about me that wants to celebrate before things are done. So even though I technically possibly would have won the championship one round before the end, I didn't consider that the end. I didn't consider that, having won the championship. I really wanted to get the final race out of the way without any problems. Just in case, something weird does happen. I don't know, maybe my internet breaks and it doesn't come back for the whole race, so I don't even finish the race. With a DNF, I could have still lost the championship, so that would have been a possibility, but no, it wasn't really on my mind, to be honest.
All right, and another question for me, and then Charles here will have a couple for you. Did you ever change your work ethic going into the season, or did it sort of just stay the same as it was?
Work ethic? That sounds very professional. No, I don't think I really changed it. I mean, honestly, I signed up for the season mostly to have a bit of fun and, as a bit of a reunion, because OOR is where I got my start in sim racing. My first ever league sim race was in OOR in the rookies. So it was wonderful to be back. And I haven't been back for quite a few seasons before the last one. But yeah, as soon as I got into the first race, I kind of felt the need to, not just show up for fun, but actually put my heart into it and try to win this. Because I've raced 3 seasons before that, and I've only ever gotten second. So there really was a bit of a motivation to give my best and to actually win it finally. So I would say there was a change in work ethic just before the season started, but during the season, no, I was still having fun, but I was also really, doing my best to get a little bit of practice in to find my pace.
Well, it was certainly a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, those were kind of the questions I wanted to ask you from last season. And I did ask Cairns some questions, and he had quite a lengthy answer to each and every one of them. I don't know. I know Charles said, do you want to read them, Charles, or do you want me to sort of spark note them?
I mean, I do not know where to read them because you haven't told me, but I mean,
my DMs.
sure.
They're my DMs. I mean, it wasn't anything too crazy. Of course, Cairns, he had a really good start to the season. He got 8th and then 2nd at Paul Ricard, and then he sort of stumbled at Brands Hatch and Masano before clawing back at S13 and Suzuka. And, he sort of just realized, like, yeah, that's going to happen. It was frustrating, but it was something that he was going to have to deal with. And then he sort of set a target for himself of beating a specific driver on track, and that got him back into the swing of things. Then you look at Season 11, he lost the Pro-Am Championship to Tully by 18 points. I asked him, I said, if Tully had come back, do you think it would have been the same? Do you think it would have been closer? He didn't really have an answer per se, not in the sense of, oh, I don't have an answer, period, but in the sense of I can't tell. He at the very least said it would have been close. And then I asked him, I said, the McLaren's your car of choice. What was the hardest part about driving the car? What other cars would you be interested in driving? He said, he doesn't know what draws him to the McLaren, but he's sticking with it. He said that the 296 Ferrari has not tempted him. Cough, Ryan Cuthbert, cough. And he says he thinks the hardest part about driving the McLaren is not being able to abuse the curbs like some of the other cars can, which I can confirm. He's still learning it, despite all of the hours he's put into it, learning these little intricate microscopic details to try and push as much out of the car as he can, but he has said that the 992 is something different to the 720S, so that would give him sort of a chance to get his feet a little bit more into new territories. But we've had him come back, so yeah, it's going to be interesting. And of course, the new cars that dropped, the 911, the Evo 2, and the 296, which we do have all of except for the Porsches. If you want a quick count, we have 1 Lamborghini Evo 2. I know, big number. And then we have, and I'm not kidding, 18 Ferrari drivers. In the, I don't know if it's, I think they're all in the new car, but at the very least, we have 18 people behind the wheel of the same car. And would you guys like to guess how many Porsches we have? Obviously, they might not be here, but how many people do you think are driving the Porsche this season?
I am going to guess, I don't know, at least 5.
5. Okay, Simon, what's your guess?
Probably a good guess. I'm gonna say not as much as the Ferrari, because the Ferrari is OP and you want to have the OP car. But the Porsche is a good car to be drawn to, so I'll say 7.
So you're both wrong. The actual number is 0. There is not a single person in this split, in this region, that is driving the Porsche.
Nick, can you tell me what car Hearn is driving?
Shut up.
Let
And
us
Power,
ignore-
and Moreno, and
Let us
Abelstead.
ignore.
Alright, listen. I was looking at the stat sheet, so it looks like I'm wrong. So it looks to be at least 4. Alright. Anywho, gentlemen. Goodness
Let us
me.
just ignore everything that just happened here. 3 minutes to qualifying, Hearn on provisional pole, followed by Michaels, Lingard, and Roombouts, and Moreno for your top 5. The rest of the people are still trying to get a decent lap in, so we'll let them be. I don't know what to talk about, so what's the strategy for the race? Or what you think?
Well, it's...
Oh, I mean,
Go ahead.
it's Oulton Park. It's absolute chaos. I mean, I think we have a pretty good chance of rain. As we've seen, the practice session started wet, ended dry. This quali session started dry. I think the rain is not gonna show up until quali is over. But as you can see on the rain predictor, rain is gonna show up very soon. So there's a very, very good chance we're gonna have rain at some point in the actual race. And with that, you don't really have the luxury of coming up with a strategy beforehand. You really want to draw out your stints as long as possible on the, individual tire sets. So in case rain does come or a dry period does come in the later stages of the race, you still have the chance to react. Otherwise, if you throw out all your tire changes early on, and the weather throws you a curveball late in the race, then you don't have a free pit stop left.
Excuse me, but yeah, that is pretty much everything correct that Simon just said. And I got an update about the Porsche information. Based off of my own stat sheet that I just read, we have 6 Porsches in this split, in this region. So yeah, it is not 0, not 5, not 7, but it is 6. So that's useful information to have, and back to qualifying.
Okay, you said 5, Charles, I said 7. I think we get to share the spoils.
Fair enough.
I think
Fair
that's
enough.
fair. One thing we should mention, we've had some updates here in the Sprint Series. So after each round, we're actually going to be doing some voting, doing some award giving for Driver of the Day, which obviously is who do you feel is the Driver of the Day, similar to what F1 does. We have the Sportsmanship Award, which driver has demonstrated clean and fair racing throughout a round. The Best of the Rest, anyone outside the top 10 who is most impressive. And of course, one that I think is a very welcome addition, is the Best Livery. These forms will go live post-race. There should be a channel for it already. And not only that, we are going to have a Move of the Week channel, so all drivers can submit entries of either themselves or another car, and these are things such as really good overtakes, maybe a really snappy save, just hard and fair racing, stuff like that. And should we get enough submissions, we'll showcase it in the next broadcast. But yeah, the forms for AP are already out. If you haven't seen that already, that'll be in the Sprint Series announcements channel if you have access to that. You have to scroll up a little bit, but yeah, I think that's something that I'm surprised it took us this long to implement it, because that would have been something, that we should have had, I think, a little sooner. But it's nice to give some recognition to these drivers.
Yes, I do agree with you, and we have rain here in qualifying, so Simon, please predict my future.
I mean, what future is there to predict? The rain is here. Quali is not yet over. People are still on the final laps, but I think it's safe to say quali is over. There's no one going to be improving. So, P1 goes to the new face, the 992 Porsche of Moreno. Can you believe it?
No, I can't.
Yes, I can.
And the thing is that the gap is less than a tenth to Hearn. Daniel Hearn in P2 right now in the 132 Porsche. A driver we've seen a lot of in the European Sprint Series, and he's actually sandwiched between those two new drivers, Jason Lingard, fellow Briton there in P3, and then Rumbouts, surprising P4. Not something that I think we've seen too much out of him. And it looks like we should be moving forward. I don't know what we're doing. Quali is stuck at the moment, but we should be... There we go. The sun's out, and gentlemen, I think it's time for a series, or a little segment of the broadcast that I, personally, have missed dearly. And that is going to be the grid walk for this event.
Enjoy it.
We get to see all of the cool liveries that people have come up with in the off season, or relatively soon, depending on who you ask. So let's take a little bit of a walk. There's going to be some that aren't working. They didn't really get dragged in, which is annoying. The livery sync tool, of course, having some problems. But going through the grid, of course, Pierre Moreno, new driver, starting on pole position. Daniel Hearn lines up with him, so it's a Porsche 1-2 here at Oulton Park. Jason Lingard and Verardi Rumbouts. New driver and an old driver, and Rumbouts keeping that sort of graffiti going on that vehicle. Dean Power from Ireland, a new driver here in the Wiz Motorsports Porsche, very sleek looking livery. And then it's Danny Santo joining him on that third row. Omar Releno, one of the new drivers here, also from Spain, has Nigel O'Brien to keep him company in position number 8. Simone Ippolito in the Italian Ferrari for the Italian. Makes a lot of sense. Good to see him back inside the top 10. And then Mads Hedrickson making a top 10 appearance there in the Aston Martin. In the next row, in row number 6, Scullion, a new driver, joins Abelstead. 11 and 12 for both of them. Ryan Cuthbert in the Tango Ferrari, looking to do a little bit of tango here this evening. And joining him is going to be the number 20 of Oyamets, an Estonian driver, new driver here in the European Sprint Series. Best of luck to him. And behind him, another new driver is Tuska in the BMW. Huziak returns in the Ferrari. Yvonne Cairns, one of your champions from last season, returns with the Braun McLaren, and he's got Eugene Vinogradov, very shocking qualifying from the Russian down in P18, but a very sleek-looking livery. Maybe he's going to give him some extra bonus points. It's the 777 of Son, a new driver, and Andreas Sienaker, hopefully his brother is going to join us at some point. I don't know, but that is going to be a 19 and 20 for them. Fabian Schopp has Terry Williams to keep him company there in 21 and 22. And then David Michaels will be starting ahead of the safety car, but the safety car seems to have had some sinking issues. Although it is the boat, which doesn't sink, but it's always nice to see it back on the circuit. But have we seen any liveries that we like?
There's been so many liveries we like, and it's genuinely a shame that for some reason on my screen the liveries are absolute chaos. Something went very wrong. It's very avant-garde, has its own beauty, but the ones on your screen are definitely a lot nicer. But let me quickly jump in with, you said it, and Moritz has been saying in the chat, Vinogradov starting in P18 is not something we would have expected. Now he's sitting in the Nissan GTR, which hasn't been the most competitive car for a while, but perhaps it got even worse in 1.9, who knows? And we seem to have absolute chaos on the start. We seem to have a bit of trouble figuring out who goes where, but I think we've gotten in sort of a line. No, still people are trying to overtake. We'll see if we've got some sort of a a row going into the race starts. But right now it seems we haven't even gotten off to the race start yet, and things are already going wild.
Well, it's the start of the new season. People are going to be a little bit shaky. Of course, the old dogs here are, shaking their heads saying, guys, what are you doing? We've done this before. But everyone else will follow suit. I'm sure the penalty bot will be having quite a lot of fun here this round if we get penalties for grid positions. But we'll see. I'm sure these guys will manage pretty well. And real quick, as we're on this parade lap, ladies and gentlemen, of course, a quick shout out to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 13 of the Sprint Series. We've talked about them quite a lot here in the broadcast. Melbourne-based sim racing supplier servicing all of Australia and New Zealand. Very swell guys. And if you're outside of those borders, like, well, all of us here in the booth or pretty much anyone on track, if you send them an email, they'd be definitely more than happy to do some business with you. And of course, our OR Patreon members do get 5% off their in-store purchases, so please, please, please use that. Sim racing equipment is not cheap by any means, but of course, again, thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring another season of the Sprint Series. Always glad to have them. But we continue on with the parade lap, and things should be getting ready here relatively soon. The sun is out, thankfully, and we'll see if that trend continues.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Well, what I'm seeing so far is at least Moreno in P1 is where he is supposed to be, but there seems to be a little bit of confusion down at the P5, P6 places. We have cars switching back and forth, so if they're already fighting now, I think we're gonna have a very interesting battle to come at the race start, but we have gone double file, so I think I'll leave it to the boss. Nick, race start is yours.
Thank you, Simon. It has been a while since I've done a race start, but thankfully I've been keeping my commentating vocals up to scratch. Obviously on my own personal streams I run a weekly event, so I get to do some commentating there, not in ACC but in Trackmania, which you guys should check out. Release date May 15th. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we are 2x2 here at Oulton Park. It's Moreno on pole for the Frenchman. It leads Daniel Hearn also in the Porsche. And it's green, green, green here at Oulton Park for the first race of the season. It's a very good getaway there from Hearn. You almost wonder if he was maybe a little bit out of position as we go side by side. There's some contact there. Lingard and Rumbouts making a little bit of friendly exchanges there, and more side by side as we head up, down through this track of a roller. It's an amazing circuit. A lot of undulation is really going to test the drivers and their cars. Rasmus Abelstead running right now P5, 4, 3, is it 6? I don't know. This game's got to update, but we are going to ride on board. You can see the train in front of him. You can see the train behind him. It's been a pretty good start for everybody as we head into this tight, long hairpin. Almost a little bit of banking gives the drivers a bit more rotation. It's been a solid start up at the top. We're going to hop back here. Ryan Cuthbert sitting in P15 at the moment, trying to run down Oyamets there in front of him as we head through the little bit of a chicane, slowing the drivers down on this back straight. But yeah, it's been an incredible getaway. You can see, despite the skill levels of all these drivers up at the top, we've got a very surprising Lingard there in the amateur category running in P4.
Yes, it is amazing to see amateur drivers doing well in these races, because usually you do not see them anywhere near the top 10 even. So, I mean, P3, P4, very, very respectable, I think, from Lingard. And yeah, he's doing very well. But somebody who is not doing very well right now is Michaels, who seems to just be dropped a few places on the start. But yeah, a pro driver stuck behind a train of cars, it seems like.
Especially at these tight, dangerous, technical tracks like Oulton Park. Usually you see quite a big margin between the pro drivers, the amp drivers, everyone in between. But with Lingard being comfortably in P3 right now, up there, I think it's just a little bit of leeway at the start of the season. So I think we're gonna see some people moving around up and down, probably up more than down, in the classes as the season goes on.
Yes, you are absolutely right, Simon. As we ride with Omar Relaño, I hope I pronounced that correctly, he is in P10 right now, a Pro-Am driver, I think, yeah, Pro-Am driver doing very well right now, about mid-pack, so seems to be stuck behind the Lamborghini.
Yeah, a little bit of a bottleneck there, breaking up the Ferraris a little bit. Nice train of 5 of them. Daniel Hearn already getting away pretty well, just about a second and a half, give or take, over Moreno, who is just keeping him in check, though, making sure that he doesn't do anything too egregious. Rasmus Abelstead, although, coming under fire right now, as it is Santo making the first move of the season, possibly into excuse me, into the penultimate corner as we head up the hill. He got an excellent run, and it looks like he might not be done yet. You are going to be riding on board here with the Spaniard as he sits behind in the slipstream. Tries to gain a little bit of ground, but can't as that first turn just come up. Abelstead runs it just as wide as he can. And we're already getting some excellent bit of pressure put on these drivers at the start of the season. Santo got a little bit loose there. I thought he was going to go onto the grass.
And
Yes,
speaking of getting loose and going on the grass, we've just had some very, very interesting stuff between, let's see, Vinogradov and I think the partner was Cairns. It's hard to say, but a lot of time spent on the grass, a lot of time spent dodging the other cars. As Vinogradov, who started 18th, made up a few positions, now back down to 19th after having a little bit of contact and trouble in and following turn 1.
Yeah, but you can't count him out. I mean, this is the guy who was giving you a bit of a hard time last season. So, and you also said, you know, maybe the Nissan got a little bit of not any love, maybe got nerfed a little, isn't really the most competitive car. So we'll see what he can do, but I don't think he's really down and out. Still 65 minutes left on the clock.
Who might that be? Let's have a look. O'Brien coming out of the second chicane off in the grass. Doesn't look... Oh, yeah, no. We have damage on the front. We do have damage on the front. Let's see what happened there.
Oh, just gets on the inside of the corner.
Curb. And then...
Big hit.
No way to save the car once it's decided it wants to go to the right. Not much grip on the grass. Front nose into the barrier. I think that would be a pretty good opportunity to get your first pit stop out of the way.
So, well...
and the pit win is open.
At least something. Rolando is no longer stuck behind a Lamborghini, so I managed to curse that. So on to the next one we go.
You seem to forget the powers you hold, Charles, every week. But to be fair, you had a month off, so it's okay to forget. But yeah, we got to be ready for those caster cruises. Not like they're real. It's all superstition, don't worry. But besides that little incident with O'Brien, it's been a pretty solid start. Hasn't opted to go to the pits, it looks like, unless he's just a little bit slow on the draw. Abelstead still with Santo to keep him company there for the battle for P7. And you do see Hendrickson just up ahead. Although Abelstead had a very good lap, about half a second faster than Santo. Despite that, has not opened up the gap as much as he would have liked. Fastest lap currently belongs to Herna, 33.705. Fastest lap will net you an extra 5 points. So for Hearn, that's going to be a nice little way to get the season started. Of course, everyone wants to start the season off with a win. Andreas Zinecker right now with the Ferrari there behind. I can't quite tell who that is. One of the pro drivers that appears to be, I think, Huziak. It is. Huziak getting an excellent run here on the BMW, sort of throwing him all over the place, if not unintentionally, and just up ahead is Michaels on Vinogradov. Huziak, another driver we've seen a lot of. Very surprising to be this far down the grid, though.
He must have been involved in a incident, and yes, he was. As you can see, the front of the car is all damaged, so something happened with that Ferrari that we did not catch on the broadcast, but he seems to not have major damage, at least not enough to be forced to pit, so that is good for him so far. But somebody that is... Oh, and that is quite an opportunistic move there.
Yeah, I thought Huziak had a bit of a run on the inside. I think he had the same idea, but there wasn't just really anything he could have done there. We do see Hendrickson just carrying on. Santos finally gotten around Abelstead off camera. Not certain how we did that, but he did get it done. So for the Spaniard, that's good news. Breaks away from his fellow countryman of Rolando, but I'm sure that they could maybe work together a little bit. If not as teammates, but more as just good friends. Milas Son right now still sitting in 14th, so it looks like he's gained a position. Cairns in the background as well, still just sitting under the wing of the Mercedes. This is probably the only time you'd ever actually see a McLaren challenging a Mercedes for a position. Hopefully we get to see more of that. Whoa, big off there, Abelstead, and that is going to be not what he wants as Rolano gets a very good run here. As we head into turn number 1, he does have the inside line, and it looks like Abelstead's going to hang on to this position, but it is already heating up again for the Porsche.
Yes, and speaking about going off like Abelstead just has, Scallion seems to have lost a bunch of places in less than a few minutes. I do not know what happened there, but I'm assuming something happened off track and just lost a bunch of places. But Rolano very close to Abelstead right here into the hairpin, just has to stay patient, I think, until the main straight right here after this chicane. So we will see what comes out of that, as he is very close there and will have a slipstream to the third chicane.
He's already so close on the exit of the first chicane, doesn't even get a slipstream. He still does try it around the outside, but into the second chicane, it's very, very hard to do that. So he has to stick with it behind Abelstead. Losing a little bit of ground now, but I think that is far from done. And we have a lot of these nice little twin pairs spread throughout the field. We have Hendrickson and Santo. We have what we just now watched, Abelstead and Relano. If you look a little further back, we have Zineka and Huziak. And then I think we have had a bit of a... No, Vinogradov, Michaels still up, still on it. Both of them drivers that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be fighting for P16, but that is what they are doing, and they are now drawing Cairns into the equation as well, as Michaels goes a little deep into the final corner. But Vinogradov definitely wants to get past Cairns now. Doesn't want to lose out too much time to Michaels, otherwise he goes back onto his back as well. And, well, I think we might start to build a little train there, as Sound is starting to get caught up by Cairns as well.
And we have our first pit stop of the day. O'Brien in the Lamborghini number 45 machine. Whatever it's for, it is, I'd say, a bit too early to stop.
It's hard to say. Like I said, yeah, if in a race where rain could come at any minute, you usually want to leave your pit stops, or your first pit stops, out until a little bit late in the race. But right now, I mean, look up in the sky, it is sunny as hell. The 30-minute weather forecast is saying nothing about rain, so as Cairns goes off into the grass, overtaken by Vinogradov and Michaels.
Here we have a battle between Jason Lingard and Yardi Rumbouts. Absolutely butchered those names, but Jason Lingard seems to just hold on barely to the final corner, and behind them we have Power. I do not know the first name, but I'm sure somebody will remind me of that later on. And Power seems to be in that train in the fight for P3 currently, which is exciting. So we'll see how that plays out, but Rumbouts so far stuck behind a Lamborghini.
Nothing he can't handle. He's had plenty of races last season where he was stuck behind someone pretty much for a long while. He just plays sort of the waiting game. Lingard's last lap of 37.23 compared to the 37.23 compared to Rumbouts' 36.28. So definitely has the pace there, of course. And then Dean Power in the Porsche, a 34.65. So this was a very strange lap. So it looks like we've had a little bit of entanglement between some of these drivers, slowing their laps down. But shouldn't we'll see what the true pace is like. David Michaels right now P15 with the big Russian Vinogradov behind him. Definitely a driver who is capable of pulling some amazing races out of a hat. And also a couple quick shout outs, of course, to everybody for stopping by as always. Cody extending his membership another 6 months. Appreciate you. And Avid's TTV with a $5 Australian due donation. Says EU bring in the good racing. Thank you guys for your continued support as always. We will definitely not use that money on unnecessary purchases. We'll use them on very necessary purchases. But what's looking like being something that we have to deal with that is necessary is this battle right now between Son and Michaels. There's going to be a bit of a slipstream gain there for the Aston Martin, pulls out, but just loses all of that speed. And we do see some penalties coming through. Hendrickson, Abelstead, Rolano, and Uyamets all picking up penalties of 10 seconds. Out of position for Hendrickson, out of position for Abelstead, out of position for Rolano, out of position for Uyamets. A 10-second penalty for Tuska, out of position. Sorry, what?
Power has gone absolutely into the fields. He's just now rejoining. He has just barely managed to keep it out of the ball, but he is definitely far, far away from... I want to say P4, P5, what was he before?
He was P5. He got a little snap of oversteer. And thankfully it didn't, go into... Oh, goodness, I think he spun it a little bit. Almost spun it. So yeah, just a snap of oversteer, corrected it, and went off into the grass. Thankfully avoided the walls. Son picking up a 10-second penalty for jumping the start, and then Vinogradov also getting a 10-second penalty for jumping the start. So we've seen. Oh, and Shop picks up a penalty for out of position. So start of the season always a little bit chaotic, and well, that's what we're seeing here. So those penalties will get served at the first pit stop, and hopefully they sort of keep it clean for the rest of the race. Of course, we do have the license system, so when you do get a penalty, there are points that get taken on or off of your license, depending on how you want to look at it. And too many of these could result in a quali ban, and any more would be a race ban. So for a lot of these guys, it's a little bit of an introduction to the OOR, and for others, it's just, well, maybe forgetting a little bit.
Yes, as Nick said, but too long didn't listen. Half of the grid was out of position, so we got a bunch of penalties going on here as Simone Ippolito is catching Abelstead, it seems like.
And the
And
penalties
it's very
keep
close
coming
to a
in.
three-pack, very close to a three-pack with Rolano, Abelstead, and of course himself. And well, Simone Ippolito, a driver that has been in AOR for a couple of seasons now. Do not know exactly how many, but a very familiar face. A very nice livery there as well for him. But a teammate of mine, I'll just say a quick message to him in Italian. Simone, amico mio, spero che tu vinca. Hope I did not butcher that, so on we go with the rest of the broadcast.
I'm sure he's gonna probably do the typical Italian thing and just criticize one thing and then do the hand motions, the ones. But I think it was pretty good. That's just me though. I think he pronounced it pretty well. So we'll see what the man himself says when he gets the chance. Tuska picking up a stop-go 30. I believe that's going to get swapped over to a drive-through for track limits when the stewards get to it, of course. Abelstead? No?
Unless it is for speeding in the pit lane, it will not get transformed into anything, so yeah.
Well,
anyhow, yeah, Tuska and Abelstead now in the pit lane. Tuska to serve his penalty, and Abelstead to complete his first mandatory pit stop. I can speak English, I promise.
And I believe Tuska has actually decided to retire from the race. Yeah, that SG30, very interesting. I imagine he probably would have gone off track at some point, rejoined at a weird point, and ACC automatically decided to hand out an SG30 for that, for, cutting that track in an absolutely insane manner. Not that it must have been on purpose, of course, but yeah, going into the pits, he immediately teleported back to his pit box, so I imagine that SG30 is a little bit too much, so he has decided to call it.
Well, if he stays in, then he'll have to go into the pits a couple more times. A lot of these drivers still waiting to serve that first pit stop. We've had a few drivers come in. Abelstead, of course. O'Brien, we saw earlier in the race, just going over the curb, getting that Lamborghini unsettled, smashed the barrier. Didn't go in as early as we would have thought. And then, of course, Shop as well, getting a first pit stop out of the way. Tuska's still in the pit lane, though, but things have really spread out now that drivers have gotten their groove now that those brakes and tires are up to temp. So it's going to be just a slow burn right now. We have Son here, P13 with Cairns behind, just about half a second. And there's Vinogradov diving into the pit lane for his first stop. So that 10 seconds will get added on to his tire change and fuel load. So he'll have an extra little bit of time to recollect himself before he heads back out.
And we have decided to include another penalty, because we haven't had enough. This time, actually, can you believe it? It's not for a jump start or out of position at the start. It's for a collision. 997 with the 283, 10-second penalty there, and the timing board is starting to look like a bingo card.
Oh, I would love to play some bingo right now. We could do that. Make a little bingo sheet, and we could have everyone in the OR play it. It's like, oh, you know, this kind of penalty gets out. This, you know, this happens in a race. This person does this. You know, like how you see those like F1 bingo cards people make. It'd be like that, but for the OR.
Oh yeah, and that would be quite interesting. As I just read the YouTube chat, I can indeed confirm that I'm being held hostage by Italian mafia. So please help me. But either way, Lucas Tineker here in P17 with a 10-second penalty. He still has to serve his mandatory stop with 50 minutes to go in the race. And, well, yeah.
Vinogradov has just come back out of the pits after serving his first pit stop as well. At this point, yeah, we would imagine seeing the first car to come in for the pit stop. Still no rain to be seen on the rain radar. So if you... Oh boy. And we've had a big spin from Vinogradov. Those cold tires were not helping him. But he has managed to get going again. Let's have a look what actually happened. This infamous left-hander, long, very, very fast left-hander on the cold tires just went out a little bit too much. Was actually very, very lucky to then start spinning to the inside of the corner. And not to that little wall that he saw just there. So I think he might have had a little bit of a touch of the outside wall, but shouldn't have been too much damage. And still, he has decided, apparently, to return back to the pits, to teleport back. So it looks like we have another retirement from Vinogradov.
Yep, and I noticed Tusko was still in the pit lane, so he's probably done like you said. Ippolito came into the pit lane as well, probably having a discussion with the Ferrari mechanics about what to do with Charles after the pronunciation. We've got Williams into the pit lane as well, and then that's pretty much it in terms of pit stops at the moment. We'll be seeing more of those coming through, and as I say that, Hendrickson decides that now's the time to get a fresh set of rubber on that car, 10-second penalty as well. We'll make that pit stop just a little bit slower, so thankfully the mechanics don't have to rush all that much. Ulyamets looks to be going in as well. Yes, he does, pulled way over to the right side. That lets Michaels through. Driver's got to be careful of the pit-in line, of course, 50 kilometers an hour, which is like, I think, 30, 25, something like that in usable units. But yeah, it's important to practice your pit stops, honestly, because different tracks will have different pit-in lines. You need to make sure that you're able to get below that mandatory speed before you cross the line, or else you will be copying a penalty. As we saw Son go in as well, looks like he managed to get under that. So yeah, that's sort of one of the aspects of racing that I don't think many people discuss. We're always busy talking about this setup change and that setup change, and you know what you can do at this corner and that corner. When do you apply the brake? Should you shift here? Should you not? We sort of gloss over pit stops.
Yeah, yes, go ahead. All yes.
Yes, we do indeed gloss over pit stops, and well, about more than 5 drivers, I think, have done their mandatory pit stops so far in this race. So far, no rain. And I think it is going to stay like that, hopefully. I just cursed it. So, oh well, Son is coming in for his second mandatory pit stop, or never mind, he's just out of the pits for his first mandatory pit stop. I am stupid, never mind anything I am saying right now. So, on to you, Nick.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, there's no way he just did another pit stop. But looking at these standings right now, Hearn has just completely pulled away from Moreno. 3 seconds is the gap, still holds on to the fastest lap at 33.58, just about 100th faster than the Frenchman. We've got Fabian Schopp right now bearing down on Williams. Ooh, that was close. Fabian Schopp, that back end stepping out, corrects it beautifully and doesn't lose all that much time to the fellow Ferrari ahead. Huziak comes in for his first mandatory stop of the evening. And Vinogradov still in the pit lane, and I think this is just a blue flag being let through. But yeah, it's been a really good race for Hearn, despite starting P2. Has wasted absolutely no time in getting away from the French.
Getting away from the French. Okay.
Well, I didn't want to say Frenchman again because I just said it, and I was like, get away from the French, and I'm like, yeah, that's more of just a general thing, I think they share.
He has to get away from the French. Charles has to get away from the Italians. But the other drivers here have to get away from the walls, because I know you've been saying it's very important to keep clear of the pit entry line here. It is actually at Oulton Park far more important to keep clear of the pit entry walls, because the line will give you a drive-through penalty. The walls will give you a far more physical penalty. But so far, we've actually seen some remarkably well-executed pit stops. So,
speaking of well executed, number 305 did not execute well
oh boy,
whatsoever.
What have I
He's
said?
riding on the grass. So, I mean, that is unfortunate to ruin the tires like that. In ACC 1.9, if anybody was not aware, now if you go over the curb a little bit too hard, you can lose a ton of pressure, which can lead to punctures and other bad things. So very unfortunate for 305. Hopefully none of that happens to him in this race, but might have just cursed him, so oh well.
Yep, and we have another penalty coming in. Scullion has picked up 10 seconds for a collision on lap 2. Huziak has gotten a warning from the stewards about a collision on lap number 1, so he'll be trying to keep himself clean, but with the gaps we have, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Abelstead comes out of the pit lane just ahead of the number 89. That is Rolano. I believe Rolano does hold on to that position. No, he actually gets booted down, so on fresher rubber, although it is going to be colder, but he has not really made that too much of an issue as Abelstead goes a bit wide there on the left-hander. And this could be a little bit of a switchback, a straighter exit here for the Spaniard. He's on the back of the Porsche right now, pulls to the inside onto the grass, but has to just release off of the throttle there. And that was like the unfortunate timing, but Abelstead just enough of a gap there to stay ahead, but Rolano is really just pressuring the Swede into making a mistake.
Rolano is committed to getting that P13. Abelstead is committed to keeping that P13, although he gets squirrely. Oh, he does catch the car. Rolano actually had to brake just to keep his car safe, because he didn't know what Abelstead was gonna do, or what Abelstead's car was gonna do. But that little mistake and a little too far on the curb, coming out of the final chicane, unsettled Abelstead's car enough for Rolano to go past. But now Rolano has unsettled his car going over the curb, which has allowed Abelstead to go side by side into the final corner. Still side by side going down to turn 1. Abelstead a little bit of a better exit. Exactly side by side going into turn 1, but this has to go to Abelstead, does it?
I'd give it to both of
on the
them.
outside. Ooh. Abelstead hip checks him. Not sure what exactly, which driver you can pin that on, but Rolano is not happy, giving him a little flash there. But as of right now, Abelstead has gotten past Rolano, although with a little bit of barging. Who knows which driver is responsible there? I'll leave that to the stewards.
I think we just found our move of the week there with that long battle that happened between both of them, and Abelstead actually backs up and does give that position over to Rolano, maybe saying, hey man, that bump was completely on me, I'll give you that position back. So despite that, things have they've gotten better. They've rectified their differences, and well, they continue on racing. But man, that was incredible side by side there for what, about a third of a lap?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
It was quite a bit of action we just saw, and Daniel Hearn just went in and out of the pits. Our race leader, provisionally, I think, is now in P5, with everybody ahead of him having to complete the mandatory stop. So that is going to be interesting in terms of strategy and, Abelstead trying to catch Relano so far, not doing well as he just goes off the track there almost.
Yep, we had and again, there are 2 mandatory stops, so all these drivers, once they get the first one, will have a second one. The only drivers who have yet to pit, Zeneker, Scullion, Lingard, Rumbout, Power, and Michaels. So once they get that done, they'll still have to head back in at some point before the end of this race, and it should continue to shake things up a little bit. There's Oyemets just letting a couple guys through. That is Rumbouts just ahead there in the Ferrari, and Lingard. So this right now is the battle for the lead, the provisional lead, but of course these guys will be reshuffled through the field once they go in for that first of 2 pit stops.
Actually quite impressive for Lingard and Rumbouts, and Power, and more, I believe. Yep. And Michaels, who has actually just come in, but a few more drivers still out on their first set of tires. I mean, a track like this is a bit of a tire eater. Charles was saying it earlier. Going out into the grass, going over those hard curbs can mess up your tires even more than, you know, just regular driving. So if you have 2 mandatory tire pit stops and you have a relatively long race like this, I'm impressed that some drivers are staying out late. I mean, I was saying earlier, if you have the chance of rain, you want to stay out late, but right now the skies are not really hinting at any rain, so we'll see if the strategy works out of staying out long. Of course, Lingard right now has absolutely no one ahead of him, so being out of traffic, I mean, it's a short track. It's 23 cars. You're gonna have a lot of traffic around here. There's definitely some element of strategy to deciding to stay out when you have no traffic. And just as I say that, both come in, and we actually have a touch as Lingard brakes a little bit hard, a little bit early. Rumbouts is not prepared for that, and gives him a little bit of a check in the back, but luckily hasn't actually pushed him over the pit entry line. That is something that can very easily happen, getting pushed over the pit entry line and well, getting a drive-through or ST30 penalty. Luckily, nothing there, only probably minimal damage. So let's see if the stewards have anything to say about that, or if that's just seen as a little bit of a racing incident.
Well, Simone, I would not say the things you have said about the pit entry line, as you know your powers, and we also know them. So, before somebody gets a drive-through, as Danny Santo just gets past another Ferrari, I think that was going into the pit lane, which should promote Santo into P6. I think that's been a good run from about midfield to top of midfield for Santo, but Scullion and Seneca also in the pits now.
And the Rumbouts has actually managed to get past Lingard in the pits. Actually got going out of his pit box quite a bit earlier than Lingard. I wonder if that's down to our little touch we just saw. If Rumbouts has given Lingard a little bit of damage, which he then had to repair in the pits, which then kept him in his pit box for a little longer. In that case, definitely a bit of a naughty touch. Obviously not on purpose, but would be interesting to see if the stewards have anything to say.
Yeah, that's something. I know you said it earlier. Just a little bit more on the brakes. So, I mean, it wasn't malicious, of course, but it is contact. I'm sure numbers were called out. But I would be surprised if there was a penalty dished out because of that. We've got Scullion, Zeneker in the pits. That leaves nobody with 2 stops for them, except Tuska and, of course, the safety car. But they seem to be discussing, I guess, the weather, which is important to mention, like you said, Simon, with if it's a rain race, you're going to want to stay out a bit longer, but we must be in an alternate timeline where England does not have rain at all. So that's good news for these drivers, but not so much for the tires. As you said, it's a track that likes to eat tires, a very rubbery diet. as we do see one of the Ferraris in the back. I believe that's Shop. So Shop's going to be the first driver to get all of his pit stops done, and as well as the penalty as well, getting cleared away. Here's Son and O'Brien right now, the battle for P16. Son just sort of doing his own thing this race, has not had a lot of action, had a couple of guys under his rear wing, but hasn't had too much trouble, I think, as those 777s on his car maybe bringing some luck his way.
They might. I mean, it either brings luck or, if I am commentating, brings bad luck. So, it's either. So I will just keep away from the 777 and solely focus on 45 Lamborghini, which I cursed earlier on in the race. How lovely. Simon?
And I think it's safe to say the only reason we haven't seen rain at all in this race is because I was talking so much about the chance of rain earlier. So I haven't been commentating in a little while, and it's good to be reminded of my powers once again. So I will definitely keep that in mind and try not to curse the weather or any drivers or any pit stop entries in the future.
Yep, as you said it, and well, I sure do hope we do not have rain in this race. As we join Cuthbert, who is being chased by Michaels. I do not know the first name. Somebody is gonna remind me of that as soon as they can. But
David.
David Michaels, there we go, is chasing Cuthbert right now. Is pretty close. Should be in the slipstream range, and there just isn't any spots to pass on this track, really.
Oh, it is such a tight track. It genuinely, driving in a GT3 car, it feels like it's too small for a GT3 car. It feels like it's designed more for a GT4 or a TCR car, which is, as far as I know, what is mostly used as in real life. I do believe British GT goes there with the GT3s as well, but it is definitely not really designed for GT3s. I think they're about the biggest thing that can fit here and the fastest thing that can fit here. And even then, it's a little bit strange. And we have Scap off in the grass, or sorry, I think Scap. Sorry about that. Off in the penultimate corner. Very interesting incident there. Not looking like we have any damage. Just in a very, very fast corner, going off and not going into the wall is a pretty tricky thing to do. So well kept out of the wall there.
Looks like he just sort of lost the back end over one of the bumps there, and Gravel's there to slow him down, rejoins the circuit, and carries on. So yeah, like you said, just sort of lucky to keep it out of the wall there. We didn't see all of it, of course, caught it a little bit late, but that is all right. Huziak right now just on his own in P13. No one's around him. The broadcast controller telling me that he's got about a half second to someone. I doubt that, unless it's the Ghost Rider on circuit. I don't think he is, though. And Cuthbert's opened up a bit of a gap as well. Are there actually cars on track, or am I just like losing it? Did the game? Oh no. Okay, it's like I thought maybe the game glitched out, but no.
Okay?
Things are good. We're good. I'm having a moment like I always do. Lingard picks up 5 seconds of penalties. That's going to be for collision on lap 7, so that'll just get applied to that next and hopefully final pit stop. Ryan Cuthbert still on his own right now. Nothing crazy. Oh, the game is actually having problems. Oh, it's Michaels that's having problems. So that's why I'm not seeing Michaels anywhere, is because he's playing Microsoft PowerPoint and in an OR race.
That is not good to hear, but well, it definitely seems like the stewards are having a bit of a busy day. We are now on lap 22 for Daniel Hearn, about to go on lap 23. And we've only just gotten through an incident from lap 7, so I think the stewards are enjoying their business right now, and they have quite a little more to attend to. And there's still 33 minutes to go in this race, so let's see what else happens.
I'm just gonna run through the field real quick. Maybe I just have to like reload every single car because the replay messed something up. I'm not certain. Huziak does have Cairns with him, so there is that, and there's also Abelstead. So yeah, looks like my game is just having some problems. To be fair, I haven't opened this thing up since a while. So
on my end, Michaels is also having a bit of fun time. I'm sure everything is all right with that. Definitely nothing having to do with me talking about him 2 minutes ago. Um, sorry. With 30 minutes to go, or about 30 minutes to go in this race, everybody, yeah, everybody has served at least one of their mandatory pit stops, and Fabi Sharp has served both of them, which is very impressive. As Abel said, goes in to serve his other pit stop, as well as Cairns in the 22 McLaren machine. So, so far, we have Daniel Hearn leading the race by 5 seconds over Moreno, which is leading over Santo by an unknown amount, leading over Roombots about 4 seconds, and over Lingard about 4 tenths. So this is going to be quite exciting in the top five.
Yep, and we'll
Yeah,
see.
things look like they're back in order for you now, Nick. So I
Yeah, we're good.
guess your game has just forgotten the difference between England and the Shadow Realm for a second, and honestly, who can blame it?
Yeah, I get those two mixed up all the time. I don't know which one I call home and which one I don't. But I think while yes, we do have the sort of standings we have, those will be changed a little bit more once the second round of pit stops come in. Lingard picking up fastest lap though, a 33.365, so that beats Hearn's personal best and his fastest lap by just about 2 tenths. So Lingard showing his stripes very early on, and I would say a promotion possibly in the season later on.
Absolutely, and we are starting to get into the later periods of the race where we start to get our final pit stops done. Sharp, Abelstead, Cairns all have finally or already gotten their final pit stops done. Hendrickson right now is the driver furthest up the field who is in the pits and is serving his final pit stop. So right around the 30-minute mark, for some drivers a little earlier, that is pretty much exactly where I would have done it as well. Because right now, you can with 100% certainty say that there is going to be no more rain in this race. So
Yep.
right now, you can get your final pit stop out of the way. Get that out of the way early, get into some clean air, get out of the traffic, and try to make up some ground on those drivers that are keeping their final pit stop until a little bit later. And then, once you've made up the ground, once you've managed to undercut them, you can very easily defend against them, because as we've established, Oulton Park, very narrow track, very hard to overtake here, very, very powerful undercut here.
Yep, and
Yep,
just
exactly.
a quick confirmation or quick update. Sorry, from Wagner. Lingard's class is provisional. He was added last minute. So yes, he is amateur rated, but realistically, I would say probably going to be pro. So just a quick update from the OOR higher ups. And Charles, whatever you're going to say, go ahead.
I was going to say the exact same thing because I just saw it in chat. So yeah, well done for reading my mind. As to Danny Santo just has an absolute moment coming out of the chicane there. That was a save and a half.
Yep, went one way, went the other, but kept it pointed in the right direction. That is very, very scary for the double three, who's in P3, so it looks like a triple three added there. We do have some more issues here with power. I assume it's his internet, it's not mine. We've had a couple of drivers teleporting around. Right behind, actually, is one of the McLarens. We have Scullion with 5 seconds, of course, from earlier. We also, and that's actually, he was ignoring blue flags, so that's why he's got 5 seconds. Abelstead has 10 for a collision on lap 18. So like Simon said earlier in the broadcast, Stewart's getting a little bit busy there in the office.
Yep, there's definitely a lot of work on the stewards. Every race, they're all volunteers as far as I know. So kudos to them, and of course we thank them for their hard work and for keeping these races fair and fair and lovely for everybody involved. So yeah.
Yeah, I've never done any stewarding. I'm just more here to add a voice to all the action. I don't know if Simon, you've done some stewarding. We have a yellow flag somewhere. I didn't see who it was. I don't know. Have you ever done any stewarding there, Simon?
I've done more stewarding than commentating, in fact. Before I got into the commentating booth, I was securely confined to the stewarding booth. And, well, ever since I tried out commentating, that is where I've decided to spend my time rather than the stewarding booth. But it is sometimes not necessarily a rewarding job, because drivers will always be mad at you no matter what you do. But it is still a very, very interesting and very, very important job to be the voice of reason and the one trying to keep all the rowdy drivers in check.
So I guess one question I had when it comes to stewarding is how many people are there on the team generally? And I assume it's a unanimous decision. How long does it usually take you to sort of come to a conclusion? Is it sometimes maybe a minute or two if it's pretty obvious? Other times does it take you a while? I mean, we've seen drivers get penalties from laps that were 10 tours ago.
Yeah. I want to say back when I was a steward, I don't know if it's still like it, but we usually were in teams of around 3 to 5. Usually the race director or one designated steward always keeps their eyes on the action. When an incident happens, when an incident is called out, we write it down on a piece of paper, actually, often enough, because it's just easier. And then as soon as one of the stewards is free, they will have a look, go into the replay, carefully analyze it. As soon as they have their opinion, they will notify the rest of the stewarding squad, and then a second steward has to take a look at it, decide if they support the first steward's decision, and if they both agree, then that is usually how it is. Usually you don't need more than 2 stewards having a look at something, as long as it's an easy incident to manage. If there's something really, really weird, obviously the stewards will not have an easy time coming to a decision, and if there's something that they don't feel comfortable rating 100%, then they will obviously call another steward into it, and then sometimes the whole team has to look at an incident. So yeah, the amount of time it takes for one incident, I mean, it can be like a minute, where there's been some super obvious incident or some super obvious mistake someone has made. First steward will say, yep, that is easy. Have a look. Steward 2 will say, yep, that is easy. And then that's the penalty done. Sometimes you do have to discuss a little bit, though, and especially if a lot of numbers are being called out, obviously it's drawn out. So you will go just from incident to incident to incident, and by the time you've caught up with an incident on lap 5, the race is already on lap 20, as we've seen.
Interesting, because I've always wondered that.
Yep, you've described that pretty nicely. I imagine the situations where you need multiple stewards or something like in Butter's 12 hour with P1 and 2 colliding or something that happened in the race. If anyone did not watch, I'm sure there is a couple of clips somewhere on there in OR Discord, so you can go ahead and find it. But right now we are on board with David Michaels, who seems to be ahead of some Porsche.
I think
I'm not sure who that is.
Avelstead? I think it's Avelstead, or it could be her. It's the number 34, so that is going to be Avelstead, who is on the lead lap. But both drivers have completed their stops. Lingard just finished his. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing entirely. No, Michaels is ahead. I'm sorry. I'm looking at like 2 different bits of information, and I'm getting mixed up. But no, it's Lingard there, who is fastest lap holder with mandatory stops completed. It was the 34 of Avelstead, so those 2 weren't even in the same place. Simone Ippolito just on his own right now. Nothing too crazy. We have Pierre Moreno, a driver we have not really talked about all too much since the start of the race. Just on his own right now. He does have the BMW there of Zineker to keep him company, but not really in contention for a position. I'd like to apologize if you do have a livery there, Pierre, and it's not showing up. The livery sync has a couple of moments every now and again. Daniel Hearn as well, starting to get around some lap traffic there. So we have about half the grid, a little less than half the grid actually, clearing their 2 mandatory stops. That just leads your top 11, and then O'Brien and Zeneker 13 and 14. 17 minutes just about left for that pit window to remain open, and if they don't, well, there's going to be a nice little fine as we see the Lamborghini there of O'Brien diving into the pit lane. So that'll be his mandatory stops done and dusted, and we'll see what everybody else decides to do.
Well, we have 20 minutes, or about 20 minutes left in the race. About half of the field has not completed all of their stops. Maybe they are hoping for rain, maybe they are hoping for God knows what. So, well, they have 21 minutes to do their stop, and, well, it's going to be very, very interesting in terms of strategy here.
No point in waiting for rain now, really. I mean, we can safely say that far beyond the end of this race, there's not going to be any rain. But what I think is happening is that quite a few drivers are running a lot more fuel than they would necessarily have needed. Like I said, uncertainty about rain. If you do an early pit stop, you do want to fuel up for any circumstances. So in case you do find out 40 minutes before the end that it's going to start raining 10 minutes before the end, then you do want enough fuel to actually stay out until, you know, that point where it starts raining. Well, right now, that has not turned out to be the case, but I'm sure plenty of drivers are running pretty high fuel, so the thought is going to be, well, I still have plenty of fuel left, the tires are still feeling fine, so if I can go until 10 minutes before the end, then I will go 10 minutes before the end, unless, you know, there's something else stopping me, like getting into traffic.
Yep, Daniel Hearn, one of those drivers, definitely confident in his tires and his fuel load, has passed up the pit lap after lap. Rolano and Uyamets and Ippolito clearing their final stops, so that does leave the top 8 plus Zeneker, who is staying out quite a while. I'm surprised. I thought it would have come in a bit sooner. Another driver who we've seen before in the BMW still, so good to see that, of course. He's got some front-end damage there, but doesn't appear to be affecting the performance all too much, as he does pick up a drive-through penalty for track limits. So
you have just cursed him into the pits.
Oopsie doopsie. Hey, you know what? Oh no, he has to. He can't clear the drive-through with a pit stop, so he's gonna have to go in at least 2 more times before the end of the race.
And here I was thinking there was gonna be a little bit of a battle between Relano and Zeneker brewing, but I think that is, well, gonna end before it even started.
Yeah, snuffed out early. Hendrickson and Cairns behind. Not really looking like much of a battle there. We do have Cuthbert into the pit lane. So these final stops slowly getting chiseled away, and we'll be set to go for the end of the race. But we just slip under 19.5 minutes to go. It's Hearn still in the lead ahead of Moreno and Santo. That podium position looking pretty fresh there with some new faces, and then Rubouts and Power rounding out your top 5. It's Michaels, Huziak, Cuthbert, Lingard, and Ippolito into the top 10, as your race leader decides now is the time for that final mandatory stop.
Yep.
And just behind him, Moreno as well.
Yes, so both of the top guys in the pits and Santo in the pits. So all of top 3 are in the pit lane currently. So that is going to be an interesting strategy battle to see if maybe somebody has damage and want to repair, or somebody is taking more fuel and want to do stuff. I don't know what is their strategy, but we are going to see after they complete their mandatory pit stops, as we are joined. As we are riding on board Andreas Zeneker. I definitely butchered that, but he is in P10 right now, has a drive-through, has to serve it in 2 laps. The way it works in ACC, if you get a drive-through penalty, or any kind of penalty really, except a time penalty, you have to serve it within 3 laps, otherwise it's going to be a disqualification for you. So Zeneker, very unfortunate. He was having a decent race, I'd say, but unfortunately Simon had to curse him.
Yep, and I believe you do get the audio reminders from your engineer when you do have these penalties and how many laps you have left to serve them. So hopefully we see this driver here through the pit lane just to get that cleared out, and then one more time for the final pit stop of the race. Huziak in the pits as well, so that does leave this man right here, along with the top three of Rumbout's, Power, and Michaels. Left to get pit stops out of the way. Zeneker again passing up the pit lane, maybe trying to open up a gap somehow to anyone behind, try to lose as little time as humanly possible on the pit stop, but that's going to be a bit rough as Rumbouts goes into the pit lane. One of the top three currently who have yet to pit.
Yep.
I'm told. Sorry, I'm told, Charles. You have something to say about that from your experience.
Yes, of course. I was about to talk about it because I saw it in chat. So, yes, as Cody pointed out in chat, I do have personal experience with getting disqualified in races when I'm not serving a penalty. Imola 10 hours, OR endurance, of course. You can go ahead and watch. So far, I think I've set the record for the only person to be disqualified this season, so well done to myself, as Rumbouts is rolling out of the pits and is being passed by Daniel Hearn, not surprisingly, as he was leading the race. So 15 minutes or 16 minutes left in the race. Any predictions?
Well, I think Hearn and Moreno should be popping back up into the top spots when Power and Michaels go in. Santo could as well. It just sort of depends on how quickly those stops are done and if those laps are good for 4th and 5th place. Fifth place and 4th. So, I mean, I think we're pretty much all set for the race. It's going to be interesting to see where Zeneker comes out, especially as he goes into the pit lane. I don't know if that's for the drive-through or it looks like it is for the drive-through. Yep. So he'll have to come back in one more time by the end of the race. So we'll keep an eye on that, see where he pops out. He does come out in P13, so he just loses a position to Huziak, but we'll see how many more he can lose. But yeah, I think this race is pretty much set in stone. Dean Power into the pit lanes, and David Michaels does not decide to go in. Hearn will usurp P2 there. So yeah, I think our top three are pretty much all done.
So to quickly bring up the point of best livery, do we think Seneca's livery is melon inspired, or is that a coincidence?
I have not seen that. I do see Seneca's livery right now, but I will just go ahead and say it's a coincidence. You are seeing things, Simon?
I think I need to have a melon. I think what that's telling me is that I'm hungry, but it's a good looking livery among many others. But still quite a little bit to go before we decide which one's the best. I think I have my vote.
Yep. Yeah, I have my vote.
I also have my vote, which is the number 44. Can you show that?
Yeah, Lingard, the all black. I'm sure it looks great on your screen, but for me it's all black, unless that actually is the livery.
That is actually what I see, so I hope you like my sarcasm.
Okay, Simon, what's your driver for livery of the day?
I mean, can't really decide on one driver there. That's the problem. Let me see which ones they actually were. The problem is, as I said, on my screen, the liveries are some avant-garde, modern art, absolute interpretist ridiculousness. But I do remember a very, very good-looking Porsche and a very, very good-looking Ferrari with the exact same livery. So I don't think it's fair to give it to one driver there. But I think it's going to have to come down to which car looks better with the livery on it.
Well, I'm going to assume you mean Rumbouts because he always has exceptional liveries.
Rumbouts livery is absolutely wonderful, but not actually the one I meant.
Okay, well, we'll keep searching through the grid. Power's got a very sleek one.
Go.
That looks very nice.
Power. That beautiful black and lime green. And then what I presume is his teammates. Let me see if I can find them. I can, in fact, not.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's true. We've had some drivers drop out. I would have said Vinogradov. Just I love the color scheme, of course, and the graffiti-like colors, or art style, I should say. But that also gives Rumbouts some space there. So both of those are very solid. Kevin Parody saying, wait until you see the KD car. I'm terrified of what I'm going to see later tonight. Ground Control saying that Lingard's livery is wrong. It should be the same as O'Brien. There's 3 liveries for Wiz Motorsports. So thank you for that. I'm sure that'll get rectified by next week. Again, the livery sync has a little bit of problems sometimes. So usually by like the 3rd round at the latest, liveries are all set and we're good to go. But that will be a discussion we have for another day. As every driver has served their penalties, Abelstead has 10 seconds added on. Andreas Senecker, that we talked about earlier, has come out in P18 behind Son and Abelstead. So that's the story of his race. But yeah, we'll carry on another 11 and a half minutes, gentlemen.
Yep.
My livery took 3 rounds to get fixed, 4 rounds actually to get fixed. So for the first 3 rounds, I was driving around full hot pink, and I will not let that rest. Because that was a really good looking livery.
I mean, I like the pink color. I don't know about you, but
oh, pink is great. Pink is not seen often enough in motorsport, but with the actual livery also being pink and being an even better shade of pink.
Yep, I do agree. And well, while we were going through all of the liveries, I picked my actual favorite, which is the 140, totally not biased.
Yes, of course. Definitely not biased towards Simone Ippolito. No relation at all. Fabian Shop, I'm sure, has some fans there with the Doges on the front. Terry Williams, I gotta say, that gradient is just... Oh, that gradient looks good.
Very, very smooth. I like it.
Much like his steering inputs, this race has been on a very good run throughout the course of the last 60 minutes. And I'll still have an extra 10 to go. Son with a nice, just solid color. I've been told that from Kevin Parody that we've had some late additions to the liveries, which is why some of them don't work too well. Abelstead, see, the thing is with the blue, I'm sure it looks amazing. O'Brien as well, his livery's having issues. Good color scheme there from Uyamets. Cairns, we've seen the Braun race. Oh, it's actually Bra Racing. So it looks like we've dropped one of the letters. I'm sure next season it will be just Bra Racing. So hopefully it doesn't get knocked around too much with the melons. You know how it is. Huziak with a little bit of, oh goodness, that's a lot of bouncing there from the Ferrari.
That's a lot of lawn mowing.
He's got some what happened there?
I mean, as I pointed out earlier in the race, he had that damage from the start of the race, and well, might have just picked up a little bit more as he got hired to mow the lawn for Oulton Park here. I'm sure he's getting paid well.
Yep, he got a little bit on the inside of the chicane that left. You saw just how much of a bump there was in the ground, so that just unsettled the Ferrari. Thankfully, was able to maneuver it away from the wall and, well, kept going. And it seems like everyone else at this point has understood that dying of death is ill-advised, especially here at Oulton Park with how small it is, as we have been sitting in hot lap mode for the last little while. The battle's sort of done and dusted. The only sort of proximity we see is just blue flags.
Yeah, I mean, Oulton Park is a track where you can perfectly find out if your car is suited to rallycrossing. And turns out no GT3 cars are suited to rallycrossing. But what I can say is that I'm actually very interested to see the future livery for Bra Racing.
Well, I would be too. I know you talked about melons earlier there, Simon. So maybe we'll see sort of something like that with Bra Racing next season.
Theme, right?
What's up?
They're starting to turn out to be a theme.
Oh yeah. Yes, I think we know what kind of drivers these are. You know what they prefer, if you will.
Yeah, of course we know. We are not going to say it, but
I don't know what you're talking about. We're just lowly commentators, just commentating over a race.
Oh yeah, of course. We just love lemons a lot, and except one of us, keep you guessing. And well, talking about rallycross, you said that not any of the GT3 cars are very suited for it, but I would argue that the Bentley is probably the most suited for rallycross out of all of these cars.
See, I agree with that. Also, like, it's good on the water. So if we ever had like an OR like aquatic division, the Bentley would be there. I think if instead of the Titanic they sent the Bentley, there wouldn't have been any iceberg sinking. It would have been the iceberg getting just chopped in half.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and to reply to Cody, I can indeed confirm every setup he makes feels like an absolute boat. Anyway, with 7 minutes left in this race, Daniel Hearn is leading comfortably. Hopefully, he does not get disconnected or anything. Would be a real shame.
Charles, you have powers. You have to use them responsibly.
Oh, I'm
I
using them
think he's very
responsibly.
aware of that.
I'm just saying. I hope the man doesn't get
See,
disconnected.
but
What could possibly go wrong?
But the
Come
thing is,
on,
we've done this before in the past. We've said, "Oh, driver XY is doing so well," and then they go off, even if we say it in a sarcastic tone. I'm just saying, the powers that be when it comes to commentators' curse, they hold nothing back. They throw all punches. You got to be careful.
Nick, come on. Tell me, what is Castor's Curse? To me, it just sounds like a metal band or something like that, you know?
Oh yes, of
Uh,
course. Yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly. And Cody is just talking a bunch of nonsense in the chat, and we will just ignore everything there. So, yeah, I mean, I think everybody here on the grid is doing well. I hope everybody does well and nothing bad happens to them. See, I'm such a good man.
I think Charles has elected to use his powers for bad, and I don't think there's any way of stopping him now.
Yeah, 100% he's using it for bad. The second you start breaking the sarcasm out, that's like the gods know. They're like, all right, got it. We're gonna just turn the dial. We're gonna look at the chart. You're gonna be evil, whatever it is. I don't remember. But I think moving back towards the race here, with 5 minutes to go, the pit window's gonna be closing. What we've seen so far from all of these drivers, is there anybody that we should be looking for? I personally will say Moreno and Santo and Lingard, so three of your top 5 drivers have really impressed me. Is there anybody else that we should be keeping an eye on throughout this season?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Number 140.
Oh yes, of course. A driver. I'm talking more the new guys though.
Number 340, which is currently in the booth here with ya.
Yep, of course. Simon, what about you? Is there anyone you're looking towards the future with in terms of what they can pull off here in the OR?
I mean, all of the new guys deserve to have an eye kept on them. We still haven't seen that much of the new guys, even if they are impressing us now. There's no saying that they will impress us next time, or that they won't impress us even more next time. But I think it would be a mistake if we didn't call out this absolutely beautiful overtake attempt from Michaels on Ippolito, which Ippolito has managed to keep around the outside of the second chicane. But Michaels is coming back, but there does not seem to be any way to get an overtake done into that penultimate corner, no way. What I was gonna say is it would be a mistake not to, talk about the old drivers or the well-established drivers. Hearn has always been one of the faster drivers, always been towards that front pack, but right now he is genuinely impressing me. He is leading with 19 seconds to spare, so maybe he has found another level in that Porsche, maybe he has found another level in 1.9, but right now he is absolutely leading the charge, while, well, the leaders from the past are down in P4 and in the pits retired.
Yep,
Yep.
go ahead.
Yep, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
All right. Well, I was gonna say no. The gap there is massive. It's impressive. I mean, Hearn is a driver we've seen a lot of here in EU, and obviously Moreno has some establishing to do. But that just goes to show you what can happen. Even in the same car, they're both in the Porsche, and it might be set up relatively similarly. But the thing is, it's always going to be down to the drivers and how they handle the car themselves. As we get some lap traffic coming in here, could shake things up actually between these two. Michaels again tries a little bit of an outside line through the chicane, doesn't work out too well. But yeah, no, Hearn is just not looked back at all. He got one bit of clean air and that was it.
Yep, you are absolutely right. And Michael's just trying his best to get past the 140, but 140 obviously driving very, very well. I would even argue the best driver here on the grid, but that is a totally unbiased opinion, of course. Uh, I think David Michaels might have a chance. Might.
Might
There's
with
2 laps to go for them at the very least.
Yep, and around the outside here into turn number 1, David Michaels tries to get this position for himself, runs it onto the grass, and actually does get ahead, but they are side by side still as we head through. Ippolito pulls back into the lead. Michaels doesn't get the corner all too well. Ippolito, I thought, was going to run wide there for just a second, but these two guys are going to go down to the wire with this one. This is where the battle is for this race, and well, with the time lost, Michael's going to be doing everything he can. Bit later on the brakes here and there, tries to reel in the Ferrari, but after some time, some relaxation, it's these two that are giving us a bit of a show. You do have Son ahead in the Mercedes. The next time these guys come around, it will be the final lap as Hearn begins that one. So we're looking at 44 laps here this evening here at Oulton Park. The blue flags are out. Son is going to have to find somewhere to pull out of the way to let these guys through and not try to mess up anyone's race. And it should be just about here. There it is. Son pulls off to the side. It's going to be a little tricky here. Up the hill, over and under the arch, but everybody sort of manages pretty well. Michaels, though, still keeping Ippolito in his sights, not letting up the pressure, and just waiting for an opportune moment to strike into the final corner here. Looks like a bit of an over-under, but hasn't given him the best exit.
Yeah, Michaels has gone a little bit too wide in turn 1 on the last lap. Decided to give back the position, immediately went on the brakes to not draw the ire of the stewards towards him. As we see Ippolito getting a slow exit out of turn 1, and it might be that Michaels is passed even before turn 2. There we go, look at that. I was about to say, it's obvious that Michaels has the pace to get past Ippolito. He just has to find the right moments. And that right moment came as Ippolito made a little bit of a mistake coming out of turn 1.
Yeah, but Ippolito isn't giving this up just yet. He almost went into the back there, but Michaels has broke free of the chains. But the problem is there's still a bit of a chaser behind, and he has got to make the rest of this lap stick. It's going to be very difficult. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Hearn picks up the first win here of the season at Oulton Park, and he's got one massive gap down to Pierre Moreno, who will be picking up a podium position. Very good job from the Frenchman. And then Danny Santo, a new driver here, a debutant in the Sprint Series, comes home in P number 3. We check back in with this battle between Michaels and Ippolito. Rumbouts and Lingard will be picking up those final 2 positions in the top 5, and then Dean Power, excuse me, will be P number 6. But it looks like David Michaels may have made it to the end of the race in one piece. You can see the Ferrari disappearing behind him into the final corner. The last time he's got to make it work. Ippolito later on the brakes tried to go for a desperate move, but it wasn't going to be enough. Michaels gets the job done, holds off Ippolito, picks up an impressive P7. Ippolito can be happy into the top 10. Ryan Cuthbert, a familiar name here in the OR, and a familiar name in the top 10 as well. Job well done. And Omar Relano, another debutant here, makes it into the top 10 in his first outing. Leaves Hendrickson and Huziak and Zeneker to round out 11th, 12th, and 18th. But man, it's been a great opener to the season.
Oh yeah, for sure, a great and exciting and relatively clean race, except for half of the grid not being in position for the start, but I think that can be accepted for round one.
Yep. Well,
And
we're gonna
I'm
go ahead.
I'm very interested to report that Ippolito may have lost P7 in that final lap, but he has somehow, post checkered flag, picked up a wonderful Stein, carried it with him for a few corners, and then absolutely launched it into orbit. So I think he is an absolutely talented sim racer. I think he might be an even more talented spear thrower. I wish we could have seen that on the broadcast, but
Well,
that race overall, absolutely beautiful opener to the season. I mean, Oulton Park is a is a wonderful way to open a championship. It might not be the most comfortable way to open the championship for the drivers, but for the viewers, it definitely was a beautiful treat. And the same goes for 1.9. First OR Europe sprint race in 1.9, and I think it didn't disappoint.
Yep, but
Yeah,
we're going to take a look at the standings really quick before we get anything else out of the way. Of course, overall, it's Daniel Hearn on the top step of the podium. Moreno and Santo, two new faces here in Europe, join him there. In the Pro-Am category, it's Power, Roleno, and Henderson. An amateur, we'll throw Lingard in there because he's on classified, but whatever. Oyemets and Son make it into the top three of their respective classes, but that's the end of this. Charles, you were going to say something?
No, I was just going to agree with Simon here that it's been a great race, very exciting, very clean, and of course first race in Europe for 1.9, and I think it's been a very great one, and looking forward to the rest of the season.
Well, that makes two and probably three of us. One quick final shout out to Simrigs, of course, for sponsoring Season 13 of the Sprint Series. Can't do some of the stuff without them. Melbourne-based supplier of all things sim racing related for Australia and New Zealand. Like us in the booth, and obviously the drivers on track, we don't have that kind of luxury, so send them an email. They'd be more than happy to do some business with you. And of course, our Patreon members do get 5% off their in-store purchases, so if you haven't taken advantage of that, please do. But that is going to do it for tonight here at Oulton Park. The season already getting off to an exciting start here. A little bit of domination early on from Hearn, and we'll see if that carries into further points in the season. But yeah, next week we'll be at Watkins Glen. 80 minutes, no stop, so we'll see how the drivers cope with that. But gentlemen, closing thoughts before we head on out.
Nothing much to say really, except what we already said. So I think we can close, and been a great race, and yeah, hopefully it stays like that for the rest of the season.
All right, well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of myself, Charles, Simon, and everybody here at the OR, I'd like to thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed your stay, and of course, again, thank you to Simrigs for sponsoring Season 13 of the Sprint Series. In 1 week's time, we'll be in the good old US of A for 80 minutes at Watkins Glen. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, as always, stay safe, stay beautiful. We'll see you next time.
See ya.